Mike, just first off, any update on Ernest Jones at all?
No update. They're doing the medical right now. Probably stick to the same story as last night. Is not season ending, but we're gonna be working through his knee. We'll have an update probably on Wednesday on what the technicality is behind it.
That was about 20 minutes ago, so as close to breaking news as possible. I was wondering if anyone was going to ask Mike Macdonald about Ernest Jones' knee, because we're all kind of waiting on bated breath, and that's all he had to say once he was asked about it. So it sounds like we won't get an update until Wednesday. Says they're doing the medicals right now. That probably means including imaging, but says that they'll stick to last night's narrative, which is they don't think it's season ending, but he might miss some time. Adrenaline is a powerful thing, but we saw him jumping around on the sidelines in the second half, celebrating, and there was a lot to celebrate about. Tonight, we're going to go back over that big win last night on Sunday Night Football in Washington, but mostly look ahead to what we think this team is, where this team is heading. We'll take a look at all the updated standings and point differential and playoff odds and everything else. Focus a little bit more on the quarterback who's playing outstanding. And then, of course, we have the trade deadline now less than 24 hours away. So we'll get into some thoughts and ideas pertaining to that as well. This is Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Welcome back, you guys. Just want to point your attention to the bottom of the screen, nwforever.com. That's going to take you to the new Patreon page. That's where you're going to find all of my content, all of it, under one banner now called Northwest Forever over there, because it includes Seahawks Forever and Mariners Forever. All the videos, the audio, podcasts, my Substack is included in that subscription. Everything under one roof, and you'll get some exclusive videos and live feeds and chats and access to the Discord channel over there as well. And we have begun the Bracket of Boom for November, where you get to choose a video topic for a video I produce each and every month. Got to do that through the Discord over on Patreon, so check that out if you would. Also, if you want to support me in any other way, those ways are all listed and linked down below in the description. I am a full-time independent content creator, but this QR code that you see right up here over my shoulder is if you just want to buy me a beer or a coffee. And then also shout out to my boys over at Fast Fashion Brewing in Soto. It's on First Avenue, 1700 block, right next door to Hooverville, right across the street from Showbox Soto. If you're heading down to the game on Sunday against the Cardinals, slip in there first. Some of the best craft beers you're going to find in the city of Seattle. Say hi to my buddy Matt Storm over there and tell him that you watch the show. All right, you guys, how are we feeling today? I mean, I think, I was going to do takeaways and all that, but I thought what we would just do here tonight is just have just kind of a wide-ranging discussion on where you feel this team is at the moment after their 38-14 win over the Commanders last night at Northwest Stadium is what it's called now. Can't keep up with all this stuff. Hate everything about, the branded sponsorships, but shoot, it's been going on for 2 decades now. But every time you kind of learn the name of a new stadium, they change it. I kind of wish I miss the days where the stadium name described the stadium as opposed to their main sponsor, like Three Rivers, Riverfront, things of that nature. But apparently at some point in the last year or two, they changed the name of the Commanders Stadium to Northwest Stadium. So, of course, the Seahawks were going to have an advantage, because they traveled 3,000 miles to the East Coast and still got to play in the Northwest. Literally. The Seahawks improve to 6-2 with a game this Saturday, 1 o'clock Pacific time, against the Arizona Cardinals. And then the Rams looming Week 11 in what is shaping up to be one of the most epic and important regular season matchups the Seahawks have faced in many, many years. Now, we'll talk about the possibility of a kind of a classic trap game set up this week against the Cardinals, I'm sure. But this is what the current standings look like. Seahawks and Rams tied at 6-2. The 49ers dropped to 6-3. They've yet to have their bye week. And then the Cardinals are at 2-5. And then when we're done here, if we so choose, I know I'm going to, we get to watch the Cardinals, our next opponent, up close. So they'll be coming off a little bit of a short week. They play the Cowboys tonight on Monday Night Football. That'll be an interesting watch. Jacoby Brissett going again instead of Kyler Murray. I have some thoughts on that. If I don't get back to it on my own, remind me a little bit later when we're talking about that game. And then this keeps showing this week to week. This is something that, I keep giving him credit, but Michael Sean Dugar of The Athletic has been saying for weeks that this is a stat that the farther we get, just like DVOA, and really, I guess you could make the case for any of them because sample size, right? But point differential, you're going to earlier in the season have more anomalies and have more ups and downs. But you can see the Rams and the Seahawks in the top 5 in the entire NFL in point differential. The Rams at plus 82, the Seahawks at plus 81. Both teams, well, the Rams coming off 2 straight blowouts to really pad their total. And then the Seahawks with their second blowout victory of the year. So they're right there with them. And then the 49ers at plus 6 and the Cardinals at minus 1. And this is kind of where you get into some arguments about, sometimes teams play above or below their talent level. And the Cardinals at 2-5 going into tonight at just minus 1 tells you that they've had some rough luck and had trouble closing out games. And meanwhile, the 49ers at 6-3 at just plus 6 is usually not sustainable either. And then, of course, they suffer yet another injury this last week with Mykel Williams, their first-round draft pick, going out with a torn ACL, unfortunately. The New York Times does this now. They have a simulator where they can go by current standings or projected standings, and then we're going to show you some playoff odds here in a minute, too. This is the projection, and they run 100,000 simulations for every single game to come up with these on their computer model. Right now, they've got the Seahawks not winning the NFC West. So they've got the Rams and Seahawks both finishing 12-5, but the Seahawks not winning the division, which would, that would really sting to lose on a tiebreaker for the second straight year to the Rams. But they've got them as the 5th seed. And then this is what they have as their chances remaining. And I don't have the column at the top because of the way this was stacked. But the first column is chances to make the playoffs based on their projections. Second column is chance to win the division. Third column is chance to get a first-round bye. Fourth column, sorry, I didn't have my own notes. Fourth column is to win the Super Bowl. So right now they have the Rams slightly ahead of the Seahawks all the way across the board, of course, and then the 49ers right there with them. So even the 49ers had an 82% chance to make the playoffs, even though they sit 3rd in the division. This is what the entire conference looks like now overall. And you can see Eagles at 97%, Packers at 87%, Lions at 70%. The Bucks at 93%, and then the Rams, Seahawks, and Niners, respectively, at 94, 90, and 82. Now, what's interesting about that, obviously, is that math doesn't math. So you have 8 teams that have a 70% chance or better of making the playoffs. Only 7 make the playoffs. So right now, the Lions, surprisingly, would be on the outside looking in. Tied, same record as the Bears in that division, surprisingly enough. Hard to argue against the NFC West being the best division in football at the moment. And then after last night's game, this is kind of where everything stands as far as where the Seahawks sit offensively and defensively. This is points per game. The Seahawks 5th in the NFL right now at 29 points a game. The Colts still leading the way at 32.2. If I had told you after this offseason, even the optimistic ones, such as myself, if I had told you Seahawks are going to average 29 points a game over their first 8 games, what would you have said? Yeah, I don't think you would have believed it either. Even me, who got to watch all during training camp and felt really, really good about what I was seeing and was talking on this show about how I thought the pieces were going to come together. I baked in some growing pains into my schedule projection. That's why I had them starting out 4-3 through their first 7 through the bye week. They end up 5-2, of course. But it was because I thought the offense would take a little bit longer to come together. 6 new starters, including the quarterback. some new starters on the offensive line, an entire new coaching staff, except for Jake Peets. Everybody new scheme, all of that. Just thought it would take some time. It has not. And then on defense, we knew this was probably going to be a strength of the team. The Seahawks tied for 5th in the league at 18.8 points per game given up. And they've had a couple of games where, Saints, this one last night, obviously, where, that point total they could easily be leading the NFL if they don't give up a couple late touchdowns to the Cardinals, have to eke that one out. And then you give up a garbage time touchdown last night to the Redskins. You give up one against the Saints. I know every team kind of has those examples, but and then the star of the show last night, I know you can make a case for JSN. There's a lot of guys on defense that had big games, but my goodness, the start that Sam Darnold got off to, completing his first 17 passes. And you look at this pass chart, that is a thing of beauty. One of the things, so we talked about earlier in the week when I had Stacey Rost on, I asked her, what's your favorite thing about this team? And her answer was how balanced it is. Just showed you the offense and the defense, both 5th in the league in points per game and points per game allowed. But even look at this chart. Look at how balanced. I think that can go a long way in describing the way Clint Kubiak is calling games. Just how relentlessly consistent he is in how he makes you defend every blade of grass and every offensive concept. You can never sit on your laurels as a defensive play caller or player and think, well, they're just going to run it now. They're just going to throw it now. They favor this side of the field over that side. They don't throw deep. Go look at Aaron Rodgers' passing charts. If you're a defense preparing to play the Steelers, you don't need to worry about getting beat over the top. He just doesn't do that anymore. It is total point guard game management stuff when you look at his passing charts. But this thing, you hear about some quarterbacks throw better to the left than right. Not in Sam's case. Every single aspect of the field. And then you look at his touchdown throws, where they are. Unbelievable performance. And just to put it in perspective, this was tweeted today by the NFL Network Around the NFL account. In the Seahawks win over the Commanders, Sam Darnold joined Johnny Unitas as the only quarterbacks in the Super Bowl era with at least 325 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 3 or fewer incomplete passes, and 0 sacks taken in a single game. Yet again, 0 sacks for the team. Only 1 quarterback hit in the entire game. They are on an incredible run. Tweeted about it earlier today. The Seahawks are on pace at this moment to give up just 19 quarterback sacks. To put that in perspective, first of all, that has been a long-running issue here in Seattle. Geno Smith was sacked 50 times last year here in Seattle. And I didn't go back and look at 23 and 22, but I think the numbers were similar. I think he was sacked close to 50 times all 3 years that he started here. In Minnesota last year, Darnold was sacked 48 times. That has been something from his past that has caused some concerns when you look at, even as well as he played last year, up until the end of the season, his time to throw and his sack numbers were cause for concern. He has elevated that part of his game, just the decisiveness and how quick he gets rid of the football. And it's showing up in pass protection, as well as just the massive improvement in not just the talent along this offensive line, but the way it's coached, the way it's managed, the way it's executed by the play caller as well. It just doesn't allow defenses a chance to hone in on one aspect of what they're doing. They can't just attack Anthony Bradford because he might be the weak link, because then they'll get you on the backside. They'll get you another way. There is no predictability whatsoever about what Clint Kubiak is calling. There's no predictability about what he calls out of certain formations in certain situations. There just isn't. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing to watch. So that 19 sack pace that they're on would set a team record. In the entire 50-year history of the Seattle Seahawks, their best year protecting the quarterback was 1977 when they only allowed 21 sacks. A lot of that could have been because Jim Zorn was the quarterback then, and he loved to scramble around and run. But that was a remarkable stat that you have to go back 49 years to find the last time a Seahawks offense was on track to give up that few sacks. Pretty remarkable stuff, if you ask me. Let's get right to some of your comments and questions. Guys, how are we doing? Salty Shane, first one in. Always got to give a shout out to that. What's up? How are you, Shane? Why are you so salty? They're coming off a blowout win. And let's talk about that too. Like this was, there are certain things, particularly near the end of the Pete Carroll era, that were really frustrating for us as fans and for me as a creator who has to, analyze and talk about this stuff. And that is, we just didn't see blowouts. That just felt like one of those things that like other teams get to enjoy, but we don't. It just didn't happen. And Pete had his mantra that you can't win in the fourth quarter. But how many times did we get up on teams and fail to put them away? That was kind of part of their brand for the last 7 or 8 years, playing close games. Even the last couple of years, as dysfunctional as that offense, and particularly the offensive line had been, even Geno detractors have to acknowledge that he kept us in games. So we always played a lot of close games, win or lose. Well, now we've gotten to enjoy 2 blowouts in the last 8 games, first 8 games of this year, and a couple other games that, while the score may not have indicated blowout, pretty much dominated Jacksonville once they got going. Pretty much dominated the Houston Texans, kind of let them hang around by turning the ball over 4 times. Once they got going in the second half against Pittsburgh, dominated them. So, I mean, those were games that felt like curb stomps for the most part, but they just didn't reflect that way in the scoring column. But this one certainly did, and it was fun to see. Shitty to see injuries. Don't like seeing Jaden Daniels go out the way he did. Marshawn Lattimore, it was confirmed today, tore his ACL. I just hate injuries. I just hate seeing it. I want to play teams at their best. I want to beat them at their best. I've often said that if a genie came down and offered me 3 wishes, one of them would be I want to see one NFL season. Well, I suppose if a genie came down, I'd say forever. No injuries ever in the NFL. I would just love to see what a season would look like and how it would play out, especially in this division, my goodness, with no injuries. I'm sure 49ers fans would agree with that sentiment at all. All right, Salty's the first one to bring up the Rams. He says, not going to happen, but we're sweeping the series against the Rams. This brings me to a good point. I was just watching the Mike Macdonald press conference, and much to my chagrin, because I've told myself before that I should avoid this, but I was watching the live comments, and don't do that. Don't ever do that if you go watch the live press conferences over there, because it'll just, oh my goodness, it'll strike straight to the heart of just being disappointed by people and football fans. But anyway, I digress. One person pointed out, hey, they're still, stop calling them a contender. They're not a contender until they beat the Rams. And while I understand that sentiment, it's just wrong. It's just fucking wrong. It's not right at all. There is nothing. Now, yeah, it technically plays into, comes into play later on as far as tiebreakers and things like that. But if you just in a vacuum, if the Seahawks go out and lose in LA in 2 weeks, it absolutely doesn't mean that they're not a contender, that they can't very well go on the next 7 weeks after that and roll into the playoffs and be the hardest team to play in the postseason. But the sentiment is sound, and I understand it. And I've been saying for weeks that week 11 is looming so large. as what could shape up to be the biggest regular season matchup we've seen here in a long, long time. It's a damn shame it's not on national TV. I think it's a 1 o'clocker. Like, that's kind of crazy, but I'm sure we'll get the number one broadcast crew, at least. We'll get that whole treatment. I don't know. Maybe it'll be, it's so complicated these days with the rules. I don't really know like which games are eligible to be fixed or flexed or not. Like Fox might have an exclusive. I know there's a couple games every week where you can protect games. They probably would with a game like that. So I don't know if it can or cannot be flexed or not, but my goodness, there's going to be a lot of eyes on that game, which kind of makes the Cardinal game next week a little scary, doesn't it? We've obviously handled the Cardinals for many years, going back to when Pete was here. Mike seems to have a great plan. We saw it again last night against Jaden Daniels. Mobile quarterbacks just don't scare me as much as they used to with this defense because the pass rush up front, they are so disciplined in how they go about their pass rush plan and how they keep an eye on the edges and protect the edges. This defense is so disciplined. And what's crazy about that is it's also extremely violent. And to put those two things together, a lot of times you'll see defenses that fly around, they run around, they hit, and they're full of physical players. But that also tends to sometimes come with a little lack of discipline. Guys freelancing, guys kind of taking chances. How decisive it appears they are when they take angles, when they go after runners, when they gang tackle, seems incongruous a little bit with how hard they play and how violent they are. The juice that this defense brings. And one thing I really appreciated last night was still there in the second half, even in a blowout. Like that's always your concerns. You come out at halftime, maybe you just don't have the juice that you went into halftime with. And I was a little concerned because the offense came out and laid an egg in their first drive of the second half, but the defense then immediately showed like, no, we're not letting up in this one. But the Arizona thing, I'll say this. I'm just going to go ahead and make a bold prediction right now. We're going to face Jacoby Brissett. This week, we thought, that all the indications were that Kyler Murray was healthy enough with that foot injury to be able to play. And then it seems like there was a shift late in the week. They changed that Kyler was supposed to have immediate availability. Then they postponed it. And then they ended up announcing 2 days later that Jacoby Brissett was going to start again. I don't think that's injury related. I think they've seen the writing on the wall and the evidence the last couple of weeks that the offense operates better with him at the helm. And I think seeing as how the plan that Mike Macdonald has had against Kyler Murray and what they can do to a quarterback to confuse him. You saw it with Jaden Daniels last night. My goodness. Like he had no clue at times. His eyes were all over the place. He didn't know what was coming. Dare I say he was seeing ghosts a little bit at times. They've done that to Kyler, and they've been able to minimize the damage that he does with his legs by being so disciplined. In which case, I think they believe that Jacoby Brissett, or I think they will see that, and they'll have him be the guy next week. It just seems like that's the smarter move for them to make. But I don't expect the Seahawks to come out and lay an egg because they understand how important that game is. I believe Mike Macdonald talked about it again last night, talked about it on his radio show again today. They're still pissed off about that Tampa Bay game. Mike especially. And the changes they've made, the changes he's made about how he prepares his defense and calls the plays, we've seen the results of that the last few weeks since the Tampa Bay game. I think that was their mulligan. That was their game that they look back on and go, we let that get away. With the Rams looming a week later, there is no way they're going to let the Cardinals off the hook. It's a division win. They want a chance to try and get one back again. They know what lies ahead, and I don't see them letting up against the Cardinals. Osiris, what's up, buddy? The bracketed boom. What is that? Well, again, if you haven't checked out the Patreon page, go to northwestforever.com. Or you can just go to Patreon and search for Seahawks Forever, or I can change up this QR code also. And now it reflects It'll take you to the Patreon page. One price, everything I do. And the beauty of it is that even the videos, they're being directly uploaded to Patreon. They're not linked back to YouTube. And that means the ads that YouTube inserts, like they are tonight with this live stream, you won't have that over there. Plus, you get my Substack, you get Mariners Forever, video, audio, everything. But the Bracket of Boom that Osiris is referencing is a monthly tournament every month, 12 months a year, where you get to pick a topic that I produce a video on. And so we're starting the voting now. You go over and right now, if you head over there, you can suggest topics. And then from those topics, we have to have 8 to start a bracket. Once we get 8 topics, then we make brackets. We put polls out each week and we whittle it down until we get a winner at the end of the month. So check that out. I'm really looking forward to that. It's fun. I can't wait to see what you guys are going to have for me. All right. I know everybody wants to talk about trades, right? Josh Dehuman says, I'm so curious who the Hawks will trade for. First, let's do this. If you haven't been paying attention in the last 24 hours, this is what Jay Glazer said yesterday on the Fox pregame show.
The teams I would say that are most aggressive right now going to this trade deadline, it's one team we're talking about, the West, Seattle Seahawks. They are very aggressive right now for several different positions.
I'm going to play that again because I think I didn't have echo cancellation on the very beginning, just in case it didn't sound good. Here it is.
The teams I would say that are most aggressive right now going to this trade deadline, it's one team we're talking about, the West here may surprise you, Seattle Seahawks. They are very aggressive right now for several different positions.
Now, he says several different positions there. Up until Sunday, there was about a 3 or 4 day period last week where it was being reported by several different outlets and very reputable, legitimate reporters who have broken a lot of stories before. Guys like Jeremy Fowler and guys like Jordan Schultz. Diana Rossini is another one. Albert Breer is another one. That specifically the Seahawks have been looking around for offensive line upgrades. And in particular, it sounds like right guard. I think there's a couple of reasons they're probably not looking for centers. First of all, I think as hard as it is to find guards that are available on the trade market, good centers are even harder to come by. No team's going to trade you their starting center. And there aren't any backup centers just biding their time out there that are good enough to start. There might be one, and he's on the Seahawks already, and that's Olu Oluwatimi. But what I find fascinating about this whole idea is the Seahawks are in a position right now where they don't have to make a trade. 49ers absolutely had to go out and try and add some reinforcements. Unfortunately for them, they go out and get Keon White to add to that defensive line, and then they lose Mykel Williams. They're kind of the same skill set. They can play inside or out. And so basically they've just replaced Mykel Williams now, and they're probably still looking to add. We did get some action today. Jalen Phillips was traded from the Dolphins to the Eagles for a third-round pick. I think that's a little rich. Phillips has a extensive injury history. That was a lot. That was a lot to pay for Jalen Phillips. I think the Dolphins, though, are taking some money off of the Eagles' hands. The Eagles, I think I just saw it right before I went live, are only paying $1.5 million towards that. That's why the pick was a little higher, similar to what happened with the Seahawks and Leonard Williams a couple of years ago, where they took some of that money off the Giants' hands and sent him a higher pick. No, it was the other way around. They sent him a higher pick because the Giants ate some of the money. And then Jerry Jones says that they've made a trade in Dallas. He's just not going to tell us yet. That's weird. It's really weird. Probably means that they haven't officially made a trade. They've agreed to a trade, but it hasn't been signed off on by all parties yet. It's probably what that means. But then Anthony Bradford goes out and plays his best game of the year last night, I think, in my opinion. Now, that's graded on a curve. It's based on Bradford's career, right? But here's my thing, and I've been saying it for a long time. This is not, I'm sorry if you've heard this before and it's a broken record, but it bears repeating. You have to weigh any potential acquisition of a right guard against messing with continuity. that player needs to be a clear upgrade. Someone that can step in soon, get this scheme, someone with a zone background, obviously, and someone that clearly will be an improvement over Bradford at right guard. And that might not be as easy to find as you think. Even if you're one of those people that thinks Bradford's garbage and shouldn't be on an NFL roster, which in and of itself is kind of ridiculous. There's a reason guys like this are hard to find. Anyone who's a clear, obvious upgrade that can step in and play right away is either A, not available, or B, it's going to cost you. I still don't believe the Raiders would be dumb enough to trade Jackson Powers Johnson. If they are, I'm all in on that. And what I would do there, just because I have been asked this question, I would play JPJ. I would continue to play him at right guard, even though that's not where he prefers to play, and I don't think it's his best position. But you don't want to go swapping out two spots right now and messing with that continuity as well as this line is playing. Not with the Rams looming in 2 weeks. And B, Jalen Sundell just continues to get better every week. I thought he played really well last night. And oddly enough, PFF liked how our offensive line played last night too. And they've typically hated just about everything we do. But all 5 players in pass blocking, at least, were in the green. They had really good grades last night when it came to that. And they usually hate what Anthony Bradford does in pass blocking, even in games where we don't give up any sacks. So, yeah, if JPJ's out there, I'm doing everything. I'm burning up the phone lines until the last minute trying to get him. Guy with 2.5 years left of club control. And a guy, again, I would leave him at right guard now to try and maintain continuity as much as possible. And then I would give him an opportunity in the offseason to compete at center, because I do think ultimately that might be his best position. And then maybe Jalen Sundell gets in on the competition at right guard, or it's Bryce Cabledew or Mason Richmond, or you draft a guy or you sign another vet, whatever. That's what I would do. Cesar Ruiz might be the same thing. He played center exclusively at Michigan until he got to college, or until he got to the Saints, and they made a guard out of him. And there's some thought that center is his best position too. I would do the same thing with him. Plug him in at right guard. It's where he's been playing. Played for Kubiak last year. That's a guy that if Cesar Ruiz is acquired tomorrow, I know he got banged up Sunday. He left the game, but he came right back. If he doesn't have a significant injury, he could play Sunday, because he played for Kubiak and Benton in this system last year in New Orleans, and he's been playing right guard in New Orleans. He could play immediately. He's going to cost something significant, even though New Orleans desperately needs to get out of some future salary. They just have to take the dead cap hits. They have to fix that salary cap situation. They are no closer to contending than they've been at any point in the last 3 or 4 years. They absolutely have to tear that thing down and stop kicking the can down the road and fix their cap situation. That's going to mean a couple of years of pain, and they need to move a couple of guys like Cesar Ruiz to get him off the books for later. But his best position might be center, so you let him compete in the offseason as well. But he's under contract for 2.5 more years. It's pennies on the dollar. This year, it's less than $1 million. I think it's about 600,000 or 700,000 is all he would count against the cap for the rest of this year. And then the next 2 years is 9.5 million as a cap hit, but that is all non-guaranteed salary. So you can do bonus conversions there. There's a lot of things you could do. He's only 26 years old still. He's on his second contract. So that's a guy that if you really believe he can be an upgrade, that now you're investing in your offensive line farther in the future as well. You could make the case, if he's a big upgrade at right guard, that if you acquire Cesar Ruiz, you have just set up your offensive line for the next 3.5 years minimum, because that's when Gray Zabel would be up for an extension. Actually, he's a first-round pick, so then they would give him the 5th-year option. So it's really 4 years. You'd be locking down what has been the weakest position on your football team for quite some time and has now dramatically improved. You'd be locking them up for years to come. That's invaluable. So we'll see if anything happens there. The deadline tomorrow, 1:00 Pacific time. Unless I wake up tomorrow and I'll be waking up before most of you because I'm on the East Coast, and there's like some early morning news or something late tonight. No promises right now, but I may go live about 2 hours before the deadline and just hang and just watch deals come in, and we can talk about it. Martin Todd Smith, complete game by the Hawks last night. Absolutely. That's what we talked about over the bye, right? My buddy Eric Briggs, who some of you that have been watching the show for a long time or other iterations of the show before it became Seahawks Forever would know my buddy Eric because he used to come on the show all the time. He texted me today and he said, man, everything you and Corbin talked about last week came true in that game. So shout out to Corbin. Pat myself on the back a little bit. Not everything, I don't get everything right. But we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about getting the tight ends and the running backs involved in the passing game. We saw that last night. We talked about some of the offense coming out and being committed to improving the running game. And in the first half, it was better. Second half, again, ran into that situation. Mike Macdonald even talked about it coming out of halftime on the field with the interview on NBC there. He's like, hey, we got to run the ball now in these obvious running situations when you have a big lead. They weren't really able to do that. Averaged less than 4 yards a carry last night against a team that is nowhere near the run defense the Houston Texans threw at us 2 weeks ago, and yet we were able to average 4 yards a carry against them. But I thought in the first half there were some real positive signs there. Between the tackles, there was some cool stuff, and it does just kind of feel like little by little it's getting there. Oddly enough, and good friend of the show and my old friend Chris Clough mentioned this today on Twitter, and we were going back and forth a little bit, that Bradford played probably the best game we've ever seen him play in pass protection yesterday and wasn't very good in run blocking. And that's a flip from where he's been in his career. It's the pass protection, the lunging, the footwork that's been his downfall, his foot quickness. But in the run game, he's big and physical and powerful. And that's been what you kind of hang your hat on with him. But yeah, it was the other way around last night. He was a much better pass blocker than he was a run blocker. And then we get another special teams play. We get the first forced fumble this year and fumble recovery. It happens on special teams, still hasn't happened on defense. But yeah, absolute complete game, and with some key injuries without Julian Love in there. Then Ernest Jones leaves, plays less than half the game. And Tyrese Knight, the guy who'd kind of been relegated to the doghouse, comes in, leads the team in tackles last night. Thought he played more like he did as a rookie. Maybe that medical issue, whatever it was physically that was kind of holding him back, maybe that's been cleared up. But, I've seen a lot of people that study tape and are analysts and really know the game talk today about how much better Tyrese Knight looked. And so if they should have to play without Ernest Jones for a couple of games, I feel a lot better now about that duo. I mean, Drake Thomas, another excellent game last night. He's starting to look like a legitimate starting weak side linebacker. And I did think it was interesting that at halftime they switched those guys around and that Tyrese actually played Mike with Drake playing at weak side linebacker. Now, if we don't trade for a linebacker, we know Logan Wilson's available, potentially. The Bengals are usually stingy when it comes to trading players, but he's asked for a trade, and they've obviously committed to the two young linebackers there that they drafted this year in Demetrius Knight and Barrett Carter. He's available, but again, it sounds like the Cowboys might be the deal that Jones was talking about, that they're in on Wilson. If we find out Wednesday that Ernest Jones, the deadline comes before we're going to find out more about Ernest Jones. If they trade for a linebacker tomorrow, an inside linebacker, it's probably not good news. If they go out and get Logan Wilson tomorrow, that might be more of a reflection on what they think of Jones' knee. Now, I don't know if it's the same knee, but remember, he's had knee issues in the past, had that cleanup in the offseason, said it was bugging him for 2 years, and he felt the best he's felt in 2 years. I don't know if it's the same knee or not. But if they do that, then that might be a little bit of an ominous sign. If they don't, then I think they might be okay. for a couple of games. Patrick O'Connell's waiting in the wings in the practice squad. And then you have Chris Paul, right? The 5th round draft pick out of Ole Miss that was the Rams tried to sneak onto their practice squad. We claimed him on waivers. I know this. We don't ever find out about practice squad players because the beat reporters that go to practice every day don't get to watch that part of practice. And so we don't know who's playing well or who's not. But Chris Paul's dad has been pretty vocal on Twitter. So we started following each other, and I've messaged him a couple of times. And he says the coaches are telling Chris he's doing great and to be ready for when his time comes, and they think he has a future as a linebacker on this team. And so there's a lot we don't know about how the practice squad is managed. We don't ever get to find out which are the 4 players that they protect every week on the practice squad so that other teams can't sign them. I wish we could. That'd be pretty cool knowledge. But yeah. Josh says, if the Hawks do trade Woolen, Asante Samuel's now cleared to play and available for free agent pickup. If they trade Woolen at this point, unless it's for something significant and long-term, which I don't see because Woolen's a rental, I'll be livid. Livid. This team has a chance to go to the Super Bowl. You cannot trade your best cover corner. Last night was a great example. He doesn't start. Josh Jobe and Devin Witherspoon are playing mostly on the outside with them and Worry inside. We were curious to see how that was going to work out, right? And then Jobe goes out with a concussion, and Reek comes in and plays great. We need him. We need Reek Woolen. There's not another corner out there that can I know Darian Kendrick played great his first 2 weeks that he was here because of injury, but that was in the slot, which is remarkable. It's something he's never done before. He's been an outside corner, but we haven't seen him out there yet. And the knock on him and the reason he wasn't drafted that highly, even though he had an outstanding college career, was lack of deep speed. So I want to keep Reek unless, like I said, unless it's like, oh, we got that for him. Okay. Yeah, there was a lot. The other fun thing about the game last night is it was obviously the only game in town, and it was on a national audience. So now you're getting all these big national analysts, of many of whom picked the Seahawks to finish 3rd or 4th in the division in the offseason, coming around now and saying, yeah, like Pat McAfee says they are a problem. Fabrice says, I predict the Seahawks will trade for Max Crosby. He is not going to be traded. He just isn't. The other thing that people keep coming at me with, especially last night after Ernest got hurt, is Jordan Brooks. There was no way the Miami Dolphins are trading Jordan Brooks. He's a guy that you build around. They also just extended him. They would take a massive dead cap hit. He's not available. Not available. Matt Beaverton says, how about we just say, wow, that was freaking awesome. Isn't it fun to watch a game and have there be no stress? Kendrickle says the division's in demon mode. I wish they would have done the in-season Hard Knocks on the NFC West. How good would that be right now? And yet they're doing the NFC East, which we've been there, done that, seen that a lot lately. Like Buffalo's been on Hard Knocks, and or no, it's the NFC East. Like we just saw the Giants on Hard Knocks and the Jets. No, I'm getting my conferences all screwed up. So NFC East, right? Giants and Eagles, Cowboys. Like I get it. There's appeal there. You have the defending champs and all that, but been there, done that. I felt like it should have been the AFC West or the NFC West this season. Would have been much more compelling, I think. Charlie the Unicorn says, I predicted trade with the Raiders. Pete Carroll statue included in the deal. Interesting. I'll go for that. We'll build him a statue if you give us JPJ for a 5th rounder. Take that. Brian says, I predict the Hawks will make 0 trades. And you know what? That's okay. Had someone last week in one of my lives telling me over and over and over again, the 49ers and Rams have made trades. We have to make a trade to keep up. Nope. There is nothing about that is true. Don't have to. I can't remember ever being in a trade deadline and looking at the team and going, okay, there's a couple of things I'd like to do, but if they don't do anything, we're good. And the silver lining too, if we don't do anything it means that we still have, all 6 of our draft picks next year and potentially more because we might move somebody too. But also that 20 million in cap space they have right now, they can roll that over into next year, which will be really valuable. Rotter Bob says, whoops, where'd we go? My guess is that the deadline trade market will go like free agency. Will get outbid on okay, not great available players. That's kind of like how the baseball trade deadline goes too. It's going to be more expensive to acquire a player right now than it is in the offseason. So if they, for example, again, to use the Cesar Ruiz example, because it's just such a logical fit here, that if the Saints are just asking for too much, they want a day 2 pick and you don't think he's worth that. Okay. Well, let's continue forward with Anthony Bradford because it's working like operationally. And we just got Christian Haynes back and he practiced in full last week. So you have a little bit more depth and versatility there. It was announced today, Jordan Schultz reported that, the Commanders are shopping both their backup guards. Andrew Wiley is one. And then the other one, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're both backups for a reason. They're guys that haven't played a lot of snaps. They haven't graded out very well. Like, are either of them going to be better than Christian Haynes? I don't want to give up a pick for either of those players. If he's not a clear upgrade, then don't do it. But a guy like Ruiz will still be available in the offseason and maybe more available. It'll cost a little bit less. The Saints will have a little bit clearer picture of their financial future. So if you don't get him now, you don't want to overpay him. It takes some discipline. But you can make another run at him in the offseason. Maybe JPJ, if they decide to stick with Pete Carroll. Although I think some of the issues there are with Chip Kelly, and I don't see him coming back. But regardless, like Pete's the guy. If they decide to stick with him, he comes back in 2026. Maybe JPJ is available in the offseason too. And more acquirable because teams have free agency in the draft to supplement that position group with. Charlie the Unicorn says they took their foot off the gas last night. I didn't see that at all. They kept playing hard and then they pulled their starters, and that's exactly how you should do. If the 49ers beat the Rams from David Pankey, they will already clinch a winning conference record. That's pretty crazy. I fully expect, and I know I've been burned by this before. It's remarkable how well that coaching staff is getting the 49ers ready to play every single week with how many injuries they've had. My goodness, they have like $100 million in salary value on the injured reserve list right now, something like that. I fully expect this is a revenge game for the Rams. Remember how upset Sean McVay was after that game, just crushed in a way that we haven't seen him in quite some time. They are going to throw everything they have at the 49ers, and they are playing extremely well in all phases right now as well. I'll be shocked if the 49ers sweep the Rams. I think they come off that. I think the Rams get their revenge in that one. And that could benefit us. Like, that's going to be a potentially much more emotionally invested effort that they're going to need this weekend, and then turn around and have to do it again against the Seahawks. Whereas, if we can take care of business against the Cardinals, we might be in decent shape. Jamal Fair, 5790. Thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Do you see us trading for anything other than a backup linebacker or an expensive guard? What players could we give up for a good guard? I've talked about this. Sorry, I didn't see this before I started talking about guards, but I think the most expensive guard would be Ruiz. And like I said, he's about $600,000 against the cap the rest of this year, and then 9.5 the next 2 years, but none of that's guaranteed. So that's a very reasonable contract to take on. Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio, those guys are in the last year of their deals. Very, very small cap hits to take those on if you were going to make those moves. JPJ was a second-round pick in the second year of his deal. That's a low cap hit. So Kevin Zeitler, I think, was on a 1-year, $8 million deal off the top of my head. So it'd be about half of that. He's probably the most expensive guy out there, but you're not committing to future years. So with $20 million in cap space available, that would be easy to do as well if he truly is available. And I have to admit this too. I've been saying for weeks that I didn't think Zeitler was available because I could have sworn that I had read, and not just once, not just one little tidbit, but multiple reports that he had some connections to Tennessee and that's why he wanted to finish his career there and he didn't want to be traded. I can't find anything to back that up. So I don't know where I heard that or if I mistakenly heard it, or maybe it was in reference to another player, not Zeitler. But that doesn't seem to be the case. So he may very well be available, and that would make a ton of sense if we were to be able to get him. The other thing, though, just to finish the rest of your question, is one of the reports yesterday, and I can't remember which one, because I usually like to give credit where it's due, but mentioned edge rusher and wide receiver as two other things they're looking at as well. I think last night was a great sign. There was a lot of worry heading into that game, and I was even eating my words a little bit. I've been saying, no. You don't need to go trade for a receiver. There's not enough pass volume. I don't want to give up any big resources for a receiver that's just not going to get that many targets and not really impact the offense at all. And then Jake Bobo and Cooper Kupp and Derek Young all get hurt. But then you saw what the other guys step up and did last night. Like Torrey Horton looks legitimate. I think if we found out today that Cooper Kupp has to go on IR and miss 4 games, I wouldn't bat an eye. I know the blocking thing. I know that's part of it, and that's you can't understate that. But Torrey Horton, I've only rewatched the first half from last night. Haven't watched the whole game yet. But he's not just a speed demon. Like his releases off the line of scrimmage, the way he his body control, the way he gets leverage, and the way he runs his routes. Really impressed with that. I think he is the complete package, and he and JSN are going to be a problem as a duo for years. But then I also expect that we're going to get some guys back next week, and then Cody White steps up and has the long touchdown, and every time he's called upon, he seems to have an impact. He looks like an NFL receiver, so I think we're okay there. Edge, I suppose, Mike has liked to use 5 of them in the past. Remember last year we had Trevis Gibson as a 5th edge. Right now our 5th edge is Connor O'Toole. He's been active on game days, but he hasn't been getting in the rotation. And so I suppose if you go out and trade for a guy that's more experienced, more veteran, you're going to use him in that rotation. But now that Derek Hall's back, Hall's stat line last night wasn't much. Let me go back and look at that again. 5 tackles and a tackle for loss, but you felt him out there. Like he's so physical, and having him back was really, really cool. And then Uchenna Nwosu just continues to prove that he's back. He's 100% healthy, and that he's every bit the player he was before the injury. He's had another half sack and a quarterback hit last night. He seems to be around the quarterback on just about every drop back. They really spread it out last night. Only 4 sacks, but a ton of pressure. Reed a half sack, Lawrence a half sack, Nwosu a half sack, Murphy a half sack, and then Leonard Williams and Drake Thomas each had a sack. It's so much fun watching that group and how coordinated they are. Kevin Mullen, thank you for the super chat. Kyle Shanahan's Netflix password is Doggy69. Don't know where that comes from. A-Chain. Okay, question. A-Chain for K9 plus a third. Is that feasible? You'd have 2 years of club control. Shanahan system for 2 years already. He fits. He absolutely does. I feel like he's a more instinctive runner, and at this point, more explosive. I have to wonder, and I know Greg Bell talked last week about how that the high ankle sprain Ken Walker got at the end of last year, that he never really fully got past that, and that was related to the foot issue he had in camp this year and the reason they've had to manage his load. Again, yesterday, even though he got off to the hot start, he and Charbonnet almost exactly split carries. Well, I guess it wasn't as close as I thought, but Walker with 11 carries, Charbonnet with 8, although Walker got the 2 touches in the passing game as well. I could see that, but it doesn't make sense from Miami's standpoint. Like, yeah, they get a third back, but K9's just a 6-month or a 2-month rental, and they're going nowhere. So that does nothing for you. I think they would want another player that's under club control, or they would just go with, they've got a couple young running backs there. In Ollie Gordon, they drafted this year, and then the kid last year out of Tennessee that I'm not remembering his name, but they got some young guys there. I think if they were going to move A-Chain, they would just want draft capital for them. Not opposed to it, though. The Online Gemini, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate the Seahawks content. Keep up the good work. Let's make a deep run. I'm with you. I am with you. Let's see. Where did I leave off? That was one thing I wish StreamYard would do is just kind of show you where you left off, or maybe take comments that you've put on the screen out once you've used them. Let's see. Jamal Fair says, do you remember last year when we had no run defense? It's crazy. That first half of the season, it's only been a year. Night and day, you cannot run against this team. Denver asks again, Dan, do you think Seattle will trade for a Mike linebacker such as Demario Davis and the Saints hold down the fort until Ernest Jones back from an injury? I don't know. Looks like you got this in before I addressed that. So I don't, unless it's a guy like Wilson that's really good in coverage and can play. Basically would be their third linebacker even when Ernest Jones does come back. Yeah, this is weird. 3 guns deep. K9 doesn't read the zone blocking right. There were a couple of things, even just in the first half rewatch I watched this morning, where, he takes a toss sweep and they keep trying the toss. And it doesn't really work that well, but he takes the toss, and it looked to me, and this wasn't on all 22, it was just on the TV replay. But it looked to me like if he had immediately just cut north and south, he would have had a big crease there. But he tries to take it farther outside, and they run him out of bounds for a loss. He just doesn't seem to have. He doesn't seem to be connected instinctively with what this blocking scheme creates in opportunities for the running back. X-Wing said it was fun to see me on the Hawks Nest pregame. I think we might do that again. We talked about maybe doing that for the rest of the season, just hopping on, doing a little pregame tailgate before Brandon does his play-by-play stuff. Yeah. That's crazy. Rodder Bob says Horton has 5 touchdowns on 13 receptions. Is that 5 touchdown catches, or is one of those the punt return? Let's see. Let's for the sake of accuracy here. He has oh man, why is it so hard sometimes in these stat sites to just make it look? No, 5 receiving touchdowns and a punt return touchdown. So he has 6, actually. He's in good shape for offensive. Well, I don't know. Probably need more than that, more volume than that to win Offensive Player of the Year. But he is definitely making an impact. That is sure. Johnny says, I prefer the Rams to beat the 49ers just to get them out of the race. If we're as good as we say we are, then we'll handle business with the Rams in week 11 and week 16. I agree. That's how I look at things, which is why I wanted the Rams to win the first matchup. And a lot of people push back on me against that. But my thought was the 49ers didn't have a divisional loss. Get them a divisional loss. We still play the Rams twice. We control our destiny with them. That's always the way that I look at things. So I am with you on that. Even if the Rams win, we'll be 2-1 in the division, while the Rams would only be 1-1 in the division. Misfit says, rooting for a 49ers Rams tie. There you go. Because that counts as half a loss for each of them, right? Brian Meyer says Shane Lemieux might be a low-key improvement at guard if Bradford backslides. He might be, but he's on injury reserve at the moment. Don't know the injury. Don't know how serious it is. They never ask about these practice squad guys, but he went on practice squad injured reserve. So I'm not sure when he's eligible to come back. Otherwise, maybe. The thing about Lemieux, though, he's kind of similar to Sundell in that there's some questions about his anchor. He moves really well. He's athletic. He can play center and guard. Like, he's kind of the ideal guy to have as a depth piece. But if you're taking Bradford out, Like at least Bradford can stand up. Like that game he had against Tampa Bay with Vita Vea and Greg Gaines going head to head with them all game. Neither of those guys recorded a stat in that game. I thought Bradford played really well in the run game that day. Let's see. Yeah, I think we're good, guys. That's an hour. 600 of you in there. Appreciate you being here. I do need to do this, though. Don't let me forget about it. Let me update you on this is how my picks went. I just cannot get these. I only got 1 out of 3 right. Sam Darnold, I had over 243.5 yards passing. I think he had that in the first half, didn't he? But I thought because the defense was going to shut down the Commanders, I thought Matt Gay would have a couple of field goals. He didn't, so I got under 1.5. And then Ken Walker, I thought he'd have more than 52.5 yards rushing. The way he started out in the first half, I thought that would work in my favor, but did not get it. So yeah, it's that was a little frustrating. But if you want to take advantage of the Sleeper app and get to know it, it is the best sports app out there. Like if you can't, right now we've got the YouTube TV thing, right? And there's ESPN games. So tonight, if you have YouTube TV, you're not able to watch the Monday night game. You can go on Sleeper and follow. They have the best real-time play-by-play where you can follow each and every play where it shows the stats and the play call and the outcome. You can react to each of those. You can chat with the other members that are in there. There's fantasy football. There's best ball fantasy. There's game picks. And then there's the games of skill. And right now, if you sign up today, they're going to give you $20 just to get started. No deposit needed. But if you want to go a little harder, they're going to match your first deposit up to $100, 100% if you use the promo code FOREVER. So check out the Sleeper app today, if you would, please. But yeah, let's wrap that up. Again, a reminder about northwestforever.com. That'll take you to the new Patreon page. Check that out. The rest of this week, we're just going to roll forward. Again, I might go live tomorrow. If we're 2 hours away from the deadline and the Seahawks haven't made a move yet, then I might just go live and hang out and we'll kind of watch the last couple hours of the deadline together. That'll be fun. And then just stay tuned to the channel for the rest of the week. If you don't subscribe already, please do. If you want notifications on YouTube, hit that bell button. All the other ways you can support me are listed and linked down below in the description. But the best way to make sure you keep up on everything is to just, as you see down there under my name, sorry, hit the wrong button there. At Seahawks Forever on Twitter. That's where I post all of my content. Thanks for being here, guys. Always glad to have you. Let's watch some Monday Night Football and get a good up-close look at our next opponent, the Arizona Cardinals. Until next time, forever and always go Hawks. I'm Dan. This is Seahawks Forever. Thanks for watching.